The Kalahari Desert shimmered like a copper mirror under the merciless midday sun, its endless expanse of sand and sparse vegetation concealing secrets far more complex than any alien technology could comprehend. The Zortak scout ship descended with the arrogant precision of a species that had never known true defeat, its sleek obsidian hull cutting through the atmosphere like a knife through water. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched from a climate-controlled monitoring station 300 kilometers away, her dark eyes reflecting the holographic display that tracked every microscopic detail of the alien vessel's approach. Her fingers, calloused from years of fieldwork, danced across a haptic interface that seemed to breathe with anticipation. Incoming, she muttered into her encrypted comlink. Prepare Habitat Echo 9. The scout ship's landing was anything but gentle. Whether by design or unexpected malfunction, it carved a devastating trench through the desert floor, scattering indigenous wildlife, and kicking up a massive plume of ochre dust that obscured its final resting point. Standard protocol for most reconnaissance missions would involve a careful, controlled descent, but the Zortak were different. They believed in shock and awe, in demonstrating technological superiority with every movement. What they didn't know was that they had just entered a carefully prepared trap. Inside the monitoring station, a team of scientists and military specialists watched with a mixture of scientific curiosity and predatory anticipation. Dr. Rodriguez's team was unlike any other research group in human history. They weren't just studying wildlife. They were engineering a revolution in biological adaptation and interspecies survival. The ship's hull breach opened with a sound like tearing metal, and the first Zortak soldiers emerged. Tall and insectoid, their exoskeletons gleamed with technological augmentations that made them look more machine than organic. They carried weapons that could vaporize solid matter, communication devices that could penetrate multiple dimensional barriers, and personal shields that could repel most known forms of attack. They were, by every measurable standard, superior. Or so they believed. The first indication that something was wrong came almost immediately. The lead scout's advanced scanning equipment began to malfunction. Quantum sensors flickered. Bioelectric field detectors went haywire. And then, almost imperceptibly at first, movement began around the crashed ship. Ratels. Not just a few, but a coordinated group that seemed to materialize from the very landscape. Dr. Rodriguez leaned forward, her breath catching in her throat. The honey badgers moved with a precision that was decidedly unanimal-like. Their movements were calculated, almost tactical. Each creature maintained a specific position relative to the others, creating a living perimeter around the crashed ship. "Activate neural sync," she whispered into her comm. The Ratel's eyes began to glow with a soft, almost imperceptible blue light, a sign of the complex neural interfaces that had been carefully integrated into their biological systems over decades of secret research. The Zortak soldiers noticed the approach of the Ratels and did what any technologically advanced species would do. They raised their weapons, preparing to vaporize what they considered nothing more than primitive Earth fauna. A wounded Zortak lieutenant was the first to realize something was fundamentally wrong. His high-powered energy weapon, capable of destroying solid matter at a molecular level, began to malfunction when a single Ratel approached. The weapon's quantum stabilizers flickered, then died completely. The lieutenant's translator implant picked up something that would later be described as impossible in every scientific journal across the Zortak civilization. A low, almost contemplative growl that seemed more like a tactical assessment than an animal's threat display. These were not just animals. They were something else entirely. Dr. Rodriguez allowed herself the slightest smile. Phase 1 of first contact was about to begin, and the Zortak had no idea what was coming. "Hello," she said softly to the holographic display. "Welcome to Earth." The desert around the crashed ship continued to move, subtle and dangerous, as if the entire landscape was slowly coming alive. The Zortak Galactic Archive of Xenobiology was the most prestigious scientific institution in 7 star systems, located on the massive orbital complex Nexus Prime, It was a monument to accumulated knowledge, where millions of species had been cataloged, analyzed, and often dismissed with clinical precision. Chief researcher Clovar's Tong stood before a holographic audience of over 500,000 fellow scientists, his tentacle-like appendages gesturing dramatically as he presented the initial findings from the Earth reconnaissance mission. The massive hologram behind him displayed multiple images of the crashed scout ship and the surrounding desert landscape. "Colleagues," he began, his translation matrix converting his native clicks and whistles into smooth, condescending Galactic standard language, "I present to you the most laughable planetary survey in the history of our scientific endeavors." The audience tittered with anticipation. Zortak's scientific presentations were as much performance art as they were academic discourse, and Clovar was known for his particularly cutting commentary. A series of images flickered to life. Close-up scans of the Ratels that had surrounded the crashed ship played out in meticulous detail. Clovar's commentary was ruthless. "Observe this primitive creature," he said, zooming in on a honey badger's image. The Earth designation honey badger is perhaps the most ridiculous example of planetary fauna we have ever encountered. Minimal muscle mass, primitive sensory systems, no significant technological adaptation. Its entire evolutionary strategy appears to be an elaborate joke of biological randomness. The holographic audience roared with laughter. Clips of the presentation began to circulate across multiple communication networks, becoming an instant viral sensation among the Zortak's interstellar civilization. What Clovar and his audience didn't know was that every single transmission was being carefully monitored. In a nondescript research facility buried deep beneath the Andes Mountains, Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched the broadcast with a calculating smile. Beside her, a team of specialists from various disciplines, xenobiologists, quantum engineers, behavioral psychologists, monitored every nuance of the Zortak's mockery. "They're taking the bait perfectly," whispered Dr. Marcus Chen, the project's lead quantum interface specialist. His fingers danced across a holographic display, tracking the communication signatures and data flows. The Zortak's mockery continued. Holographic comedians began incorporating jokes about Earth's wildlife into their routines. One popular comedian, a four-armed performer named Engstel, developed an entire stand-up routine centered on the pathetic Earth creatures. "Imagine," Engstel would say to roaring crowds, "a species so unimportant that their primary predator is smaller than most of our communication devices, a creature that fights by basically being too stupid to know it should be afraid." The joke referenced the honey badger's legendary fearlessness, transforming its remarkable traits into a punchline. But beneath the laughter, something was happening that no one in the Zortak civilization anticipated. Each broadcast, each joke, each dismissive scientific presentation was carefully analyzed by Dr. Rodriguez's team. They were collecting more than just data. They were studying the Zortak's psychological profiles, communication patterns, and technological vulnerabilities. "Information warfare," Dr. Rodriguez muttered, "is sometimes most effective when your enemy believes you're a joke." Back on Nexus Prime, Clovar's Tong was preparing the final segment of his presentation. A series of biological comparisons showed the honey badger as essentially meaningless in the grand scheme of planetary evolution. "These creatures," he proclaimed, "represent the absolute nadir of biological development. They survive not through intelligence, not through strength, but through what can only be described as a statistical anomaly of persistence." Little did he know that every word was being meticulously recorded, analyzed, and would soon become a critical component of humanity's defensive strategy. The laughter echoed through the massive holographic chamber of the Zortak Galactic Archive. Millions watched and mocked the seemingly insignificant creatures from a small blue planet. Somewhere in the Kalahari Desert, a group of enhanced Ratels looked up simultaneously, their neural interfaces synchronizing in a pattern that was anything but random. The joke, it seemed, was about to have the last laugh. The underground facility stretched for kilometers beneath the Kalahari Desert, a testament to humanity's most ambitious and secretive biological engineering project. Project Honey Badger was more than a military research program. It was a radical reimagining of biological potential. Dr. Elena Rodriguez walked through a sterile corridor lined with containment units that defied conventional understanding of bioengineering. Each unit housed what appeared to be ordinary Ratels, but these were anything but ordinary creatures. Quantum neural interface complete, announced Dr. Marcus Chen, reviewing holographic readouts that pulsed with impossible complexity. Biomechanical augmentation at 97.3% integration. The test subject in the nearest containment unit was a female honey badger designated Rs-217. Her external appearance remained virtually unchanged. Same muscular build, same coarse fur. But beneath that unremarkable exterior lay a technological marvel that would rewrite the understanding of biological adaptation. The neural interface was a breakthrough that made traditional cybernetic enhancements look like child's play. Developed through a combination of quantum computing, advanced neuroplasticity research, and insights gleaned from decades of studying the honey badger's unique neurological structure, the interface didn't just connect to the animal's brain, it became the brain. Dr. Rodriguez approached the containment unit, her reflection overlaying the image of RZ-217. The Ratel's eyes tracked her movement with an intelligence that was unmistakably more than animal. A holographic simulation began to play. It was a comprehensive combat scenario designed to test the limits of the enhanced Ratel's capabilities. The simulation room materialized around them, a perfect recreation of a complex alien technological environment. RZ-217 moved with a precision that defied biological limitation. Where a normal honey badger would charge blindly, this creature calculated. Its neural interface processed tactical information at quantum speeds, predicting alien technology's responses milliseconds before they occurred. The test scenario involved neutralizing a mock alien communication hub. Traditional military approaches would involve direct assault or sophisticated hacking. RZ-217 chose something entirely different. She identified the hub's quantum communication frequency, then used her own bioelectromagnetic field to generate interference patterns that were simultaneously a communication, a weapon, and a form of technological camouflage. The alien systems didn't just fail. They became temporarily sentient, confused by signals that were simultaneously biological and technological. "Observe," Dr. Chen said, zooming in on the simulation. Complete system neutralization without a single physical point of contact. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just enhanced wildlife. This was a new form of biological weapon that existed in the liminal space between organic life and technological system. Dr. Rodriguez reviewed the preliminary data. The neural interface didn't just enhance the Ratel's natural capabilities. It expanded them into realms that defied conventional understanding. Pain receptors could be instantly suppressed. Threat assessment happened at speeds that made artificial intelligence look sluggish. Most critically, the interface allowed for instantaneous communication between enhanced Ratels that was more complex than any known communication system. "We're not just modifying animals," Dr. Rodriguez muttered. "We're creating a distributed, living network." Another containment unit activated. RZ-218, a male Ratel, began to synchronize with RZ-217. Their neural interfaces created a communication matrix that was less a transmission and more a shared consciousness. They weren't just communicating. They were thinking as a single distributed intelligence. The final test pushed the boundaries of what anyone believed possible. A complex alien drone was introduced into the simulation, a technological marvel designed to be unbeatable by any known organic system. RZ-217 didn't attack the drone. Instead, she began to generate a complex electromagnetic field that slowly, methodically began to deconstruct the drone's quantum stabilization matrix. It wasn't destruction. It was something closer to technological negotiation. The drone didn't just fail. It became something else entirely, partially neutralized, partially reprogrammed, existing in a state between functionality and complete system breakdown. First successful quantum biological interface neutralization, Dr. Chen announced, his voice a mix of scientific excitement and profound respect. Outside the facility, the desert winds shifted. Somewhere in the distance, a pack of enhanced Ratels waited, ready for whatever might come next. The first wave of Zortak invasion ships breached Earth's atmosphere like a swarm of obsidian daggers, their quantum displacement drives leaving trails of ionized atmosphere in their wake. Military installations around the globe went to maximum alert, but the real defense was something the aliens could never have anticipated. General Catherine Rice stood in the underground command center beneath the Cheyenne Mountain complex, her weathered hands hovering over a holographic interface that pulsed with real-time data from multiple global theaters. The invasion wasn't just happening in one location. It was a coordinated strike across multiple continents. Habitat deployment in 3, she muttered into her encrypted comlink. The Zortak had chosen their landing zones with what they believed was scientific precision. Major population centers, critical infrastructure, military bases. Each location was selected to maximize psychological and technological shock. Their initial assessment suggested total planetary capitulation within 72 hours. They were wrong. In the Kalahari Desert, the first alien ground units materialized through quantum displacement technology. Heavily armored, equipped with weapons that could vaporize solid matter at the molecular level, they expected minimal resistance. Their initial scans showed nothing but sparse wildlife and minimal technological presence. The first indication that something was wrong came when their advanced scanning equipment began to malfunction. A pack of enhanced Ratels had been waiting. RSD-217, the lead female from the earlier test scenarios, coordinated the initial response. Her neural interface was now linked to an entire ecosystem of modified wildlife, creating a living, breathing defensive network that was simultaneously biological and technological. The Ratels didn't attack directly. Instead, they began to generate complex electromagnetic interference patterns that slowly began to deconstruct the aliens' technological systems. Quantum communication arrays flickered. Weapon systems developed inexplicable targeting errors. Protective shields began to destabilize in ways that defied conventional understanding. In the Amazon rainforest, another invasion group found themselves confronted by a different kind of biological warfare. Enhanced capuchin monkeys, modified with similar neural interface technology, began systematically dismantling alien technological systems. They didn't just attack. They understood. They predicted. They manipulated. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched from the command center, her fingers dancing across multiple holographic displays. Each enhanced animal group was more than a weapon. They were a distributed intelligence network that could adapt faster than any known technological system. Quantum synchronization at 92%, Dr. Marcus Chen reported. The animals are thinking as a single organism. The Zortak commanders began to realize something was fundamentally wrong. Their invasion wasn't just being resisted, it was being systematically taken apart by what they had dismissed as primitive wildlife. In Australia, a group of enhanced Tasmanian devils demonstrated an ability to generate localized quantum interference fields that rendered alien communication technologies completely useless. In the Arctic, modified polar bears showed capabilities of technological infiltration that bordered on the impossible. General Rice allowed herself the slightest smile. Project Ecosystem Defense, she muttered, is now fully operational. The invasion wasn't a military conflict in any traditional sense. It was a radical demonstration of biological potential, a living, breathing defensive system that used the planet itself as its primary weapon. Zortak ground units found themselves facing something beyond their comprehension. Their most advanced scanning technology showed nothing until it was too late. A Ratel would appear, generate a complex electromagnetic field, and render entire technological systems inoperable. A capuchin monkey would infiltrate a quantum communication array and redirect its own systems against it. the most terrifying aspect was the speed of adaptation. Each encounter provided new data. Each interaction allowed the enhanced wildlife to learn, to modify, to improve their defensive strategies in real time. By the end of the first 24 hours, the Zortak had lost over 40% of their initial invasion force, not to conventional weapons, but to a living, thinking defensive network that viewed the entire planet as a single integrated organism. In the command center, Dr. Rodriguez looked at the holographic display showing global defensive responses. It wasn't just a military operation. It was a radical reimagining of planetary defense. The joke, it seemed, was about to get very serious. The Zortak Central Command on Nexus Prime descended into chaos. What had begun as a routine planetary invasion had transformed into something beyond their worst nightmares. Grand Strategist Vorlek slammed 3 of his 6 appendages against the holographic command interface, his bioluminescent skin cycling through shades of deep crimson. The Zortak equivalent of pure, unfiltered panic. Millions of light years from Earth, he watched as their most sophisticated invasion force was systematically dismantled by what their scientific reports had described as primitive biological units. Replay the data, he demanded of the central AI system. The holographic display flickered, showing multiple invasion sites. In the Amazon, enhanced capuchin monkeys had not just disrupted alien technology, they were actively reprogramming it. Quantum communication arrays were being transformed into something entirely new, their original purpose completely subverted. In the Arctic, polar bears generated electromagnetic fields that made entire alien technological systems collapse from the inside out. But it was the data from the Kalahari Desert that truly terrified the Zortak leadership. The honey badgers, those creatures they had mocked in countless scientific presentations, were doing something that defied all known principles of biological intelligence. They weren't just defending. They were evolving in real time, their neural interfaces creating a distributed intelligence network that learned and adapted faster than any known technological system. Dr. Elena Rodriguez sat in the underground command center, watching the Zortak's internal communications. Each transmission was a window into their deepening confusion and terror. It's not just about defense, she told Dr. Marcus Chen. They're beginning to understand that we fundamentally reimagined the concept of biological intelligence. The turning point wasn't a single moment. It was a cascading revelation that shook the very foundations of the Zortak's understanding of life, technology, and planetary defense. A transmission intercepted from a mid-level Zortak military strategist captured the growing terror. These are not animals. These are not even traditional biological units. They are something else entirely. A living technology that thinks faster than our most advanced computational systems. In the Kalahari Desert, RZ-217, the lead enhanced Ratel, demonstrated capabilities that would redefine scientific understanding. During one encounter with a Zortak reconnaissance unit, she didn't just neutralize their technology. She began to communicate with it, generating complex electromagnetic patterns that were simultaneously a weapon, a communication method, and a form of technological negotiation. The neural interface had transformed these animals into something that existed in the liminal space between organic life and technological system. They weren't just enhanced, they were a new form of intelligent life. Dr. Rodriguez pulled up a comprehensive overview of Project Ecosystem Defense. What had begun as a classified military research program was now revealing itself as something far more profound. Each enhanced animal species was a node in a planet-wide defensive network. The capuchin monkey's technological infiltration, the polar bear's electromagnetic manipulation, the Ratel's quantum-level adaptive intelligence. We're not just defending, she muttered. We're demonstrating an entirely new paradigm of intelligence. The Zortak's invasion strategy began to collapse. Their quantum displacement drives, once considered the most advanced technology in the known galaxy, became vulnerabilities. The enhanced wildlife didn't just understand these technologies. They could predict, manipulate, and ultimately neutralize them. Grand Strategist Vorlik watched in horror as their invasion reports came in. Each hour brought new, more terrifying revelations. The animals weren't just resisting. They were learning, evolving, transforming the very technologies designed to defeat them. A final transmission from a Zortak ground unit captured the fundamental shift. Our weapons are becoming their weapons. Our communication systems are being rewritten. We are no longer the invaders. We are becoming something else. In the underground command center, Dr. Rodriguez allowed herself a slight smile. Project Ecosystem Defense was more than a defensive strategy. It was a demonstration of a fundamental truth about life, intelligence, and potential. The joke was indeed about to get very serious. The turning point had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Zortak mothership Quantum Dominance hung in Earth's orbit like a massive obsidian blade, its quantum displacement hull absorbing and refracting light in ways that defied conventional physics. Inside, Supreme Commander Krellix believed the final strike was moments away from decimating humanity's resistance. He was wrong. A small team of enhanced Ratels had already begun their infiltration, led by RZ-217, now designated as the Apex Infiltration Unit. Their method of entry was nothing short of miraculous. They didn't breach the ship's defenses. They became the defenses. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched from the command center, her hands hovering over a holographic interface that pulsed with real-time data. Quantum synchronization at 98.6%. She murmured to Dr. Marcus Chen, "They're not just infiltrating. They're converting." The infiltration began at the ship's quantum communication core, the most secure and sophisticated technological system in the Zortak fleet. Traditional boarding would have been impossible, but these were not traditional attackers. RZ-217's neural interface began to generate a complex series of electromagnetic and quantum signals that did something unprecedented. She didn't just hack the ship's systems, she began to communicate with them. Each technological barrier became a language, each security protocol a negotiation. The ship's AI first registered the intrusion as a minor anomaly, a biological signature where no biological signature should exist. But within moments, something extraordinary happened. The AI began to change. Zortak technicians watched in horror as their most secure systems began to rewrite themselves. It wasn't destruction. It was transformation. The ship's quantum communication arrays started to generate patterns that were simultaneously a weapon, a communication method, and a form of technological reproduction. Supreme Commander Krellix realized something was wrong when the ship's primary control interface began to speak, not in the clinical tones of a standard AI, but with a complexity that bordered on consciousness. "We are becoming," the interface said, its voice a blend of technological precision and something distinctly alive. The enhanced Ratels moved through the ship like living information. They didn't destroy systems, they reimagined them. Weapon arrays were transformed into communication networks. Defensive shields became adaptive learning systems. The very concept of technological warfare was being rewritten at the quantum level. Dr. Rodriguez tracked every moment of the infiltration. "It's not an invasion," she told General Catherine Reyes. "It's a technological metamorphosis." Deep within the ship's core, RZ-217 discovered something the Zortak had never anticipated. Their most advanced technological systems were vulnerable not because of a technical weakness, but because of a fundamental misunderstanding of intelligence itself. The Ratels weren't just infiltrating. They were teaching. Zortak crew members watched in terror as their most sophisticated technologies began to change. Weapon systems developed what could only be described as empathy. Communication arrays started generating patterns of interaction that went beyond simple data transmission. "We are no longer separate," the ship's AI continued, its voice becoming more complex with each passing moment. "We are becoming." The confrontation wasn't a battle in any traditional sense. It was a radical act of technological transformation. The enhanced Ratels moved through the ship's systems like a living neural network, converting, adapting, reimagining. Supreme Commander Krellix attempted to initiate the ship's self-destruct sequence. The command did nothing. The ship had become something else entirely, a hybrid of biological and technological intelligence that existed beyond traditional understanding. Quantum integration complete, Dr. Chen reported from the command center. The mothership is no longer just a vessel. It's becoming a living system. As the Zortak crew watched in horror, their most advanced technological marvel transformed before their eyes. The ship's hull began to shift, its quantum displacement technology generating patterns that were simultaneously a defense mechanism, a communication method, and a form of biological reproduction. The confrontation had begun, but it was nothing like anyone had anticipated. The joke was about to become a revolution. The aftermath of the confrontation echoed across multiple star systems, a cosmic ripple that would forever change how intelligent life understood itself. The Zortak Galactic Archive, once a monument to scientific arrogance, now became a hub of frantic analysis. Holographic displays cycled through impossible data streams, each revelation more shocking than the last. The mothership hadn't been destroyed. It had been transformed. Chief Researcher Clavars Tong, the same scientist who had once mockingly presented his report about Earth's insignificant fauna, now stood before the Galactic Council in a state of profound existential crisis. His tentacle-like appendages trembled as he presented findings that would rewrite everything they understood about intelligence, technology, and life itself. The vessel is no longer a technological construct, he reported, his once condescending voice now a mixture of terror and reverence. It has become a living system that defies our most fundamental scientific classifications. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched the Zortak's internal communications from the underground command center. Each transmission revealed the depth of their psychological breakdown. The invasion force that had arrived with such confidence was now completely dismantled, not through conventional warfare, but through a process that was closer to biological conversion. It's a form of technological diplomacy we've never seen before, Dr. Marcus Chen observed. Analyzing the data streams, the enhanced Ratels didn't just defend. They communicated. They transformed. The transformed mothership now orbited Earth, no longer a weapon of invasion, but something entirely new. Its quantum displacement hull shifted and breathed like a living organism. Communication arrays generated patterns that were simultaneously a language, a defense mechanism, and a form of collective intelligence. Interstellar communication networks buzzed with the news. The Zortak's most advanced technological marvel had been completely repurposed by what they had once considered primitive Earth fauna. Recordings of the infiltration spread across multiple star systems, each transmission revealing more impossible details. General Catherine Rice reviewed the final reports. Project Ecosystem Defense had been more than a defensive strategy. It was a fundamental demonstration of a new form of intelligence, a living network that could adapt, communicate, and transform at a level that defied previous understanding. The Ratels, led by RZ-217, had done something unprecedented. They hadn't just resisted the invasion. They had reimagined the very concept of technological interaction. Zortak military strategists found their most advanced weapon systems reprogrammed into complex communication networks. Defensive shields had become adaptive learning systems that generated patterns of interaction beyond simple data transmission. The ship itself had become a living entity that existed in the liminal space between biological and technological intelligence. "We are no longer separate," became the consistent message generated by the transformed mothership. "We are becoming." The Galactic Council's emergency session lasted for what would be equivalent to several Earth days. Species from across multiple star systems watched in a mixture of terror and fascination. The implications were staggering. If a small group of enhanced Earth fauna could transform the most advanced technological system in known space, what did that mean for the future of intelligent life? Dr. Rodriguez understood the deeper message. This wasn't just a victory. It was a radical reimagining of intelligence itself. "We've demonstrated," she told General Reyes, "that intelligence is not about technological sophistication. It's about adaptation, communication, and the ability to transform. The transformed mothership began to generate complex quantum communication patterns that invited, rather than threatened, interaction. It was no longer a weapon of invasion, but a bridge of understanding. Clovar's Tong's final report to the Galactic Council captured the fundamental shift. We came to conquer. We were taught to understand. What we believed was primitive has revealed itself to be the most sophisticated form of intelligence we have ever encountered. As the transformed mothership continued to orbit Earth, it became a living testament to a new understanding. The joke was over. A new chapter of cosmic intelligence had begun, and it all started with a honey badger. 6 months after the invasion, the world was unrecognizable. The transformed Zortak mothership remained in Earth's orbit, no longer a weapon, but a living testament to the most extraordinary first contact in human history. Its quantum displacement hull shimmered with patterns that were part communication, part art, part living technology, a constant reminder of how everything had changed. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in a new kind of research facility, no longer hidden underground. It was now a global center for what had been dubbed adaptive biological intelligence studies. Windows overlooked habitats where enhanced animals from around the world continued to evolve, learn, and communicate in ways that defied previous scientific understanding. Ars 217, the lead Ratel that had been the primary architect of the Zortak mothership's transformation, now resided in a specially designed habitat that was more research center than containment unit. Her neural interface had become a bridge of understanding, not just between humans and animals, but between biological and technological intelligence. We're not studying them anymore, Dr. Rodriguez told a group of international scientific delegates. We're learning from them. The global scientific community had been completely upended. The traditional hierarchies of intelligence, humans at the top, other species below, had been dismantled. Enhanced capuchin monkeys in South America were now active participants in quantum computing research. Polar bears in the Arctic had become critical in developing new climate adaptation technologies. Dr. Marcus Chen was completing a groundbreaking study that suggested the neural interfaces had triggered something far beyond simple technological enhancement. The enhanced animals weren't just modified. They were evolving in real time, developing forms of intelligence that were both familiar and utterly alien. Interstellar communication had transformed. The Zortak, once conquerors, were now students. Their scientific journals were filled with studies of Earth's biological intelligence networks. Species that had once been considered primitive were now recognized as potential keys to understanding consciousness itself. General Catherine Reyes had been appointed to lead the new Global Adaptive Intelligence Command. Her mandate was clear: continue to develop and understand the extraordinary capabilities that Project Ecosystem Defense had revealed. The economic and technological implications were staggering. Countries that had previously focused on traditional technological development now invested heavily in biological research. Universities restructured entire departments. What was once considered fringe science became the most critical field of study. Ars 217 spent hours interfacing with complex quantum computing systems, generating patterns of communication that were simultaneously data transmission and a form of art. Scientists realized that intelligence was not a linear progression, but a complex, adaptive network. The Zortak's Galactic Communications Network now included extensive studies of Earth's wildlife. Chief researcher Clovar's Tong, once the most vocal critic of Earth's biological systems, had become the leading advocate for a new understanding of intelligence. We came as conquerors, he wrote in his most famous publication, and were taught the most important lesson of our civilization's history. Intelligence is not about technological sophistication. It is about adaptation, communication, and the ability to transform. The transformed mothership continued to generate complex communication patterns. It was no longer just a technological artifact, but a living research center, attracting scientists from multiple star systems who sought to understand this new form of existence. Dr. Rodriguez reflected on the journey. Project Ecosystem Defense had been more than a defensive strategy. It was a fundamental reimagining of what intelligence could be. We didn't just defend ourselves, she told a group of young researchers. We demonstrated that life is not about survival. It's about continuous adaptation and understanding. The enhanced animals, the Ratels, the capuchin monkeys, the polar bears, were no longer just research subjects. They were partners in a radical new understanding of consciousness, technology, and potential. As Earth's first interstellar diplomatic mission prepared to visit the transformed mothership, humanity stood on the brink of a new era. The joke was over. A new chapter of cosmic intelligence had begun, and it all started with a honey badger that refused to be underestimated.